Story 1. Alexei Ananenko, Valery Bespalov, and Boris Baranov walked willingly into the heart of the Chernobyl reactor to stop a second explosion, knowing they would die horribly, saving most of Eastern Europe in the process. The men were successful in finding the valves and subsequently drained out the water, managing to complete the job before the molten radioactive metal touched the water. Their brave acts saved potentially millions of lives. Ananenko recalled being told by his boss that he could refuse the hazardous assignment. "But how could I do that when I was the only person on the shift who knew where the valves were located?" Ananenko replied. Story 2. I'll go with James Harrison, the blood donor. His blood plasma contains antibodies against RHD, which are used in making a treatment for rhesus disease. He has donated over 1,000 times. This helped prevent thousands of deaths and stillbirths, as well as many more instances of sickness and disability caused by hemolytic disease of the newborn. In a case of typical government inanity, the Australian government rewarded him exactly one time with the Order of Australia, which is the least prestigious level of recognition for public service. What did the 250 awardees for just that year do to deserve a more prestigious award? Look more photogenic? Donate more to the ruling political party? Get scraped knees in front of their local representative? No clue, but their priorities are whacked. Story 3. A Norwegian I knew in college went on to run the United Nations Disaster Relief Program. He totally overhauled the delivery of emergency resources to refugee camps and natural disaster areas. He's the only human I know personally who has saved millions. Story 4. That Russian soldier in the nuclear submarine who disobeyed direct orders and refused to launch nuclear weapons on America after he was told America had launched nuclear weapons on Russia and was ordered to retaliate. That information later turned out to be false. He saved the world by being skeptical and disobeying. Story 5, going a little left field here, but my pick would be David Attenborough. Sure, he's a guy you see voicing nature documentaries, but I believe he's helped many of us to develop an understanding and love of the natural world that many others wouldn't have. Story 6, when he was alive, I would have said Nelson Mandela, and then possibly Mikhail Gorbachev. Now, I'm just going to mention Jimmy Carter for spending the last 40 years helping to rid the world of guinea worm disease, and it's almost completely gone. Story 7. I mean, it's hard to quantify most. Some people did a lot in a particular field. Others accomplished a lot of great things in various fields that don't necessarily affect everybody. However, considering that we're able to have this discussion, I would say Vint Cerf, Robert Kahn, and Tim Berners-Lee. Story 8, Drew Weissman, Doctor of Medicine, Doctor of Philosophy, Catalin Carrico, Doctor of Philosophy, who won the Nobel Prize for messenger RNA vaccines, Dr. Fauci, and, if they are still alive, the person who leaked the genetic code for COVID-19 within 48 hours of the global announcement. This made it possible to make the COVID-19 vaccine so quickly, which potentially saved millions of lives. Fauci, in particular, also led the charge against other diseases as head of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Story 9. Hard to pick just one, but people like doctors, scientists, and educators saving lives, curing diseases, and inspiring generations are the real most valuable players of humanity. Story 10. No question about it, Dr. Charles Drew invented the process for creating powdered blood plasma. Yes, an African-American man in the 1950s has probably saved about 100 million lives, and that number increases dramatically every single day of every single year. And there isn't even a hospital named after him or a statue or a park. We have statues of Napoleon, but not Charles Drew. Story 11. I vote for user Pungweather. Seriously, this guy has been cleaning up trash almost exclusively by himself for a few years now. He deserves to be more well-known. Story 12. Many of the comments on this post are a prime example of how foolish the average person is nowadays. Many comments are listing people who are deceased, even though the post specifically says living human. People are also listing celebrities such as musicians or actors who have done nothing for humanity. Story 13. I will go with the discovery of CRISPR. Jennifer Doudna and Emmanuelle Charpentier. The ability to manipulate and fix DNA seems to be the key to life. We will use it or something like it to change everything. Story 14. Vasily Alexandrovich Arkhipov was a soldier who, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, was ordered to launch retaliatory nuclear weapons but refused to do so. The only reason why anyone younger than 60 was even born on this planet is because he refused to follow orders and start a nuclear war. I dare say he had a significant impact on our world, but most people have not even heard of him by now. Story 15. Hu Jintao maybe? Yes, Uyghurs, and yes, that really is a problem, but under his and Jiang Zemin's leadership, China moved from being overwhelmingly poor to a largely middle-class country. Yes, Xi Jinping is undoing a lot of that growth and expansion, but really, who did a lot of good for the Chinese by growing the country stably? Story 16. I saw this dude at the gas station who was wearing a shirt that said, "When I get up in the morning, the devil gets afraid. I'm going to say to him, anyone who scares the devil must be pretty important." Story 17. I wouldn't say she has done the best for humanity, because that's a ridiculous ask of any one person, but Dolly Parton just bubbles away in the background. Her trust sends out thousands of books every year to any child that signs up. And I think that's a wonderful thing. Books and homes are so important for expanding kids' minds, teaching them vocabulary, and showing them that there are other lives out there different from their own. It's just a wonderful thing that she has organized and done with her money. Story 18. Ralph Nader. He led a huge campaign for reforms in the auto industry, Federal Trade Commission, citizen activism, and accountability. He's gone off the rail a bit in the last few years, but we have him to thank for a lot of safety features in cars. Story 19. Not living, but Fritz Haber and Karl Bosch. Together, they developed the Haber-Bosch process, which is responsible for producing synthetic ammonia from atmospheric nitrogen. About 80% of the nitrogen in our bodies today originates from this process. This process revolutionized agriculture by enabling the large-scale production of nitrogen fertilizers, which significantly increased global food production and sustains billions of lives. Without it, the world's population likely wouldn't have reached its current size. Story 20. He has passed, but he did so much. He deserves an honorable mention. Norman Borlaug is credited with saving over 1 billion people from starvation last century because of his research into drought-resistant, disease-resistant, and high-yield crops. Story 21. Bill Clinton. President during the dot-com boom. Balanced the budget. Did not invade Iraq. His era is the era many people think of when they say, "Make America Great Again." Story 22. Nayib Bukele, who has single-handedly ended gang-based violence in El Salvador. His methods were questionable, but he has saved hundreds of thousands of lives and future generations as well. Story 23. Maybe the person who discovered germs or Marie Curie changed the path of medicine, saved innumerable lives, and improved the quality of life for all of humanity. Story 24. Ivan Pavlov. I've conditioned myself to get very turned on whenever I hear my fiancé's voice. Never mind, he died almost 100 years ago and I can't think of any living person. Story 25. This guy Norman Borlaug was famous for his work, which spearheaded the Green Revolution. Story 26. Norman Bethune was an inventor of many medical devices, a soldier against fascists and imperialists, a frontline doctor, a surgical pioneer, and an activist. He developed the first mobile blood transfusion service, which saved countless lives. He saved numerous civilians and soldiers fighting against fascists during the Spanish Civil War, and when Japanese fascists invaded China and committed one of the most horrific genocides in world history, where he sacrificed his life to save as many people as possible. Sadly, the West barely mentions him, but for the people of the global East and South, he is a hero to this day, and many monuments have been built in his honor. Story 27. After 27 years of fighting for others, I realized none of it matters. So, I'm going to restate this headline correctly. What living human has been foolish enough to exhaust themselves for the benefit of other humans, yet found nothing to show for it, except scorn, exploitation, and apathy from other humans? Fixed it. Story 28. There is a man in Quebec City called Gillis Kegel. He was depressed and on the verge of suicide. Then he met Mother Teresa and decided to dedicate his life to helping the poor. He is a nurse, so every day he visits patients, cleans their place, and provides care and food without asking for anything in return. He stays with them until the end and makes sure they all receive a funeral. His dedication inspired others, and he now has other volunteers helping him. At 81 and fighting tongue cancer, he and his team continue taking care of at least 200 patients, the poorest of the poor. Story 29. There was a heart surgeon on the Pride of Britain Awards a few years back who saved something like 10,000 lives during his career. I'll go with him. Can't remember the name. Story 30. Look up the cruelest dictators. They are examples of what we should not be like. And as evil as their actions were, they help the future know how to be better. Story 31. Perhaps the scientist who developed the COVID vaccine? Well, it seems like it was really an all-hands-on-deck effort, so maybe whoever headed the team, but two companies developed different vaccines at almost identical timelines. So perhaps Anthony Fauci for heading the institute overseeing the funding of the programs and communication to the nation at a critical time? But he was given the platform to do so by the president. So I guess it's Donald Trump. Story 32. If you believe in climate change, Elon Musk has undoubtedly advanced the viability of electric cars significantly. Even now, other companies producing electric cars are lagging behind. Additionally, consider his contributions to solar panels. Then, there's what he's accomplished with SpaceX and space travel, and how that will benefit humanity. However, most people judge others based on their politics nowadays. Story 33. John Adams, without consulting Congress and on his own volition, traveled to the Netherlands and negotiated a loan for the Continental Congress. That action alone gave the Continental Congress legitimacy to the European powers, who figured that the Netherlands wouldn't give the Americans anything if they thought they were going to lose. That kicked off France actually aiding the Americans, which won the war, created the first Republican government that worked, and snowballed the world into a democratic era. John Adams is forgotten by many, but along with this, he wrote the Massachusetts Constitution, which by and large served as a model for the United States Constitution. Later, his ability to keep us out of a devastating war with France during the XYZ affair, despite the public's overwhelming support in favor of war, was significant. He did a lot to create the world we see today. He was the American Cicero who accomplished far more than Cicero ever did in politics. A true man among boys. Story 34. Elon Musk. PayPal, Tesla, SpaceLink, and he saved X from the liberals. Dogecoin will balance the budget and save the country from liberal handouts. The richest man in the world could have stayed politically neutral and been beloved by all, but his conscience told him to team up with the most powerful man in the world in order to save humankind from the leftists. Never again will we be subjected to commercials of bearded men putting on lipstick while we're trying to watch football. If it's too early for him to be canonized, we could probably make an exception. Story 35. Couldn't tell you. Anyone who truly did something special for humanity has probably been killed for doing so because the people in charge don't want that. And anyone who says Elon Musk or something similar is completely brainwashed. He is an elite just like the rest of them and would not have this much power and money if he truly wanted what's best for humanity. Story 36. Unpopular opinion. Elon Musk. He might be the most consequential living human pushing humanity forward. Think about it, he's simultaneously revolutionizing electric vehicles with Tesla, making space travel potentially sustainable with Space Exploration Technologies Corporation, and trying to solve human communication and intelligence challenges with Neuralink. Love him or hate him, he's forcing technological progress in multiple critical domains when most billionaires are just hoarding wealth. What other living person is actively working on so many potential civilization-level game changers? Story 37. Norman Borlaug. Halfway through his career, it was reckoned he had saved over 1 billion people. By the end of his career, his work in Mexico, India, China, Africa, and other regions has saved lives beyond counting. The work he did has fed children in the worst parts of the world, and even now, 15 years after his death, he is continuing to save lives with the crops he engineered. Story 38. Louis Pasteur for pasteurization, making food transportable worldwide. Edward Jenner for inventing vaccinations which have saved countless lives. Story 39. Dr. Anthony Fauci is 100% responsible for the lab leak and millions of lives lost. Plus, I couldn't surf during lockdown, so forget you, Mr. Fauci. Story 40. Like him, hate him, or be in the middle, Elon Musk is up there. Whether he's unpopular or not, especially on Reddit, he'll easily be in the top 5, maybe even the most influential. His leadership in renewable vehicles, renewable energy, remote internet access, and most importantly, reputable space vehicles easily puts him there. Don't like him? Don't care, to be honest. It is what it is. Let the downvotes pour in. Story 41. Just 2 years back, my answer would have been Stanislav Gorbachev. His actions had the most impact of any single man on our current world structure, for good or for bad. For good or for bad, Bill Gates might have done the most for humanity as a whole, both from his work with Microsoft and his nonprofit endeavors.